Hey folks, this is a video about making the jump up to gold, and it's meant to accompany my post on Reddit about the same subject. I'm going to mostly focus on the issues of more playstyle, specifically mobility, soft cover, and decision making. For the most part in the video I'm just going to walk you through sort of what I'm thinking at any given point in the game, the decisions I'm making, and why I'm moving around the way that I am. To start off here, I usually just like to suppress this top spawn. On this map, and on most maps, the high ground is pretty important to control. And there's a spawn right to my left there that you don't want enemies spawning in the beginning of the match. We have a couple people sort of hanging out in the LZ, which is pretty common for a pickup group. And the other two of us are over here working on this spawn. In the early wave, I also want to discuss another issue that I did not cover on my post, since the gameplay here is not quite as interesting in terms of decision making. But that's the issue of lobby selection. If you're making the jump up to gold, and even for an experienced player, if you're playing with pickup groups, you're going to be somewhat selective about the lobbies that you decide to play with. For the most part, a good percentage of the lobbies in gold pickup groups are going to be pretty hard to play with. I mean, a lot of teammates just aren't that good. They have underpowered weapons, or they don't have a lot of experience, or they aren't using equipment. There's a lot of reasons that groups can be difficult to play with, and there's no reason that you should handicap yourself by playing a group that more or less would have to be carried by a good player without somebody more experienced there. To get to this match, I think I sifted through probably 3 or 4 different lobbies, and that's the approach I recommend. And I also definitely do not recommend just dropping into the first live match. If you get dropped in live, just leave. You won't lose your equipment if you have it equipped. Leave and look for a lobby, and so you can actually look at the loadouts that people have. This particular lobby, when I joined it, I was going for a lobby with sort of that I consider to be sort of par in terms of the loadouts on gold. And we have a Geth engineer playing a Scorpion. He's probably the other strongest player in this match. This guy that just went down here, Voldemort, is playing a Shadow, and he's using a Matic and a Carnifex, which is a little bit strange to be using both of those weapons, because I'm not sure the two things really offer that much different in terms of value. And you'll see he struggles during the match. And in terms of picking the right teammates, he was a guy who had a very high in 7 level, a lot of challenge points, and he just does not do very well this match. So it's not the best predictor. I prefer to look at equipment and weapons. It tends to be a better predictor for me in terms of the quality of the team. All that said, let's just get into the actual gameplay itself. So we've had a couple relatively smooth waves. Voldemort's gone down a couple times, but mostly it's been not too bad. I'm back up here trying to suppress this spawn, and it's an objective wave. So as I recommend in the post, get to the objectives as quickly as possible. And if you're not doing it, as I'm not here, then check a flank, cover it. There's not much to cover here, so I'm just going to get a cheap shot off on those guys. And look for the next objective. Conveniently, it's right here. I know this area is pretty safe right now. Most of the enemies have spawned on the other side of the map. And our Geth engineer here was polite enough to spawn a turret on me in case somebody else shows up. But yeah, not much to do there. Now here's one of the more difficult decisions you have to make in objective routes. You have a teammate that goes down that's pretty far from the objective, and I'm indecisive. It takes me a long time, and I just decide eventually, this is a guy who's gone down a couple times, I'm just going to leave him and get to the objective and make sure we get this thing done. You just don't want to prolong these waves longer than you have to. And fortunately I did, because I was able to get up that teammate, save him, and Metagel. I make a pretty risky objective thing here, and I failed pretty badly. Tried twice to start activating it, and only get it on my 3rd try. And I have a prime turret that's spawned next to me. I get pretty lucky here. I probably should have gone down, but I just barely get it out. And keep moving. Again, you'll see, as soon as I'm done with things, if I've accomplished something, then I just run. So I didn't get that revived, so I'm running. Now I'm going to reposition. And this is another thing I want to emphasize in terms of mobility. And this has to do a little bit with soft cover too, is I'm moving around quite a bit and not focusing in on any one enemy. I'm doing damage where I can, but without having a really, really high damage weapon, or even a high burst weapon that can take out these lower tier enemies quickly, I'm having to move around quite a bit to stay out of the line of sight of several enemies at the same time. But it appears we're just down to this guy's prime, and you can see once we actually have the whole team firing on it, besides one player, it goes down extremely quickly. This is where the team synergistic powers come in. We have Incinerate priming from the female Corian engineer on our team, and I can detonate it with Overload, as can my teammate with the Geth engineer. Again, just moving back to my default spot at the beginning of the match, and looking around trying to decide where to go. In retrospect, I probably should have stayed with the other guy. So we have 3 players on this side of the map, and I left him to fend for himself. And since he's just been camping the LZ, I'm not sure he's going to be able to hold it on his own. And as you'll see here in a second, he is not able to, and he goes down. And that forces another one of those decisions that it's hard to make. I mean, I could drop what I'm doing right here and go over and rescue him. At the time, my thinking was, well, he's being obstinate and playing by himself on that side of the map, and it's not worth the time to go over there when we've got so many enemies on this side of the map. But if I could do it again, I probably would have gone over and revived him. That's, I guess, a regret, a small regret I have about this match. But yeah, just trying to make sure this upper area is clear. I could have gone and joined down the other guy, but you can see again here, so I have this cover on my left-hand side, so it's not quite strict right-hand advantage, but I'm able to move in and out of cover from, I was able to avoid line of sight with that hunter for quite a while by just being in that position and moving backwards while I'm firing at the bomber. So here, this is a good map for taking flanking positions. You know, when you have a map this big with this many, a soft cover line of sight places like this, you know, all these walls here, all sorts of things that can block the sight that enemies have on you. And it's really good for moving around and just avoiding getting hit by things. But yeah, moving back up to cover my team, you know, I'd spent a little too long away from them there. And they were getting flanked by hunters. And yeah, just being able to flank the team side helps keep people alive, because you know, those guys probably would have taken out the guy otherwise.
That's it. Stay alert. Enemy is regrouping. Enemies inbound.
So here I'm trying to make a decision. Should I go left or right? I was thinking right because that other guy died the last wave. But then once our other teammate went right, I just decided to come back down and help this guy down here.
Careful.
Now that I've come this low, the danger is that there's a spawn upstairs that may be spawning enemies, and they maybe, I should have checked my right flank right there. There very well could have been enemies that spawn up there. But instead I'm just going to support these guys down here, and you can see Baltimore there just self-revived after being down for maybe 2 seconds. You should really be more patient than that. I mean, at least give your teammates 5 seconds. Unless you're going to get stomped, there's usually not a rush to get up. And if you've been paying attention earlier in this match, he's already used 2 meta gels with quick self-revives. So there, I used my first ops pack there, and it was a situation where you have to look at it. If there are multiple enemies in your vicinity, and you don't have any good way of attacking them, just run away. I ran away, looped around so I could flank them from the side, and that kept me alive. And protect the team's flank in the process, because none of those enemies were able to attack them, so I looped around and was able to kill them. Now at this point I'm running a little bit solo. This is probably one of the more solo waves of the map for me. And the reason I'm doing this is because you want to take out the lower tier enemies as quickly as possible and try and avoid the primes. Our other teammate who's been camping in the landing zone has been focusing on this prime here, and so he's still working on it. He's been working on it for probably at least a minute. And yeah, it's sometimes if you can protect somebody by watching their back like this, and again, I'm protecting his back by looking at this high area and moving out of line of sight of that hunter while I back out of his line of sight. That's going to be helpful for the team. See here, this is more of a hero revive. You can pull these off if you run in from out of nowhere. None of the enemies will have targeted you. They're still targeting your teammates, so you can sneak in, you can get a quick revive and run away. Now, this enemy, you can see again. Once the whole team is focus firing on boss, it goes down really quickly. And I think that's why it's not really worthwhile diverting your attention towards a boss if you're just by yourself or even with just one other teammate, unless you're playing a really high powerful build. But if you're just moving up, it's more unlikely that you are able to have weapons that are going to be able to take out bosses that quickly.
Understood. Move.
But there, yeah, I had to make a quick decision about which route to take for the objective, and it was clear it was blocked the other way, so I moved quickly around the other side of the map. And objectives basically block spawns, so spawns will not happen close to where the objective is, and you can use that information to your advantage and be able to get to the objective a little bit quicker. Here, a hunter snuck up on us, but generally speaking, you're best off just staying in the objective and keeping yourself alive. So here, there's a rocket trooper on the high ground, and I'm going to keep myself in hard cover, which I don't usually use, but with something like that firing from the high ground, you want either the damage reduction or just cover in of itself against all the other enemies. But you can see there, I sort of moved out of line of sight of enemies while still being in the objective. You can do that a lot. Use walls to your advantage, move around, keep things from being able to fire at you while still being able to do the objective. And in general, I mean, that's the principle of soft cover. It doesn't have right-hand advantage is a small part of the soft cover principle. I think people maybe overemphasize it a little bit, and I mean it's a very useful tool. But more importantly, just being able to move around quickly. You can see here I'm moving around quite a bit. I looped underneath this bridge here twice, and I'm trying to get better line of sight on this prime so that I actually can use right-hand advantage if I need it. But keep moving. I mean, that's really what I think it comes down to. You can hang out in hard cover and just start firing things, but you're more likely to get flanked. If you move, you're going to have more situational awareness and be aware of the enemies that are around you. Just by virtue of moving about, you have better vision of the map. So again, here's pretty good team synergy. We're getting a lot of tech burst, like with 2 overloads here. And things start to get a little more interesting here because it's getting to the later waves. So we had a prime spawn here. I don't really have much interest in fighting it yet, and I'd prefer to move away from this spot. But now we have 2 teammates here, and one has gone down. Now, always take care of this threatening rocket trooper like that. And yeah, so we had actually 2 guys go down in a row, and that's what I would call a revive missile. If I have a couple teammates that go down around a dangerous target like that, you run the risk of, if you try and revive them directly yourself, you get into a revive trade cycle. And as you do that, more and more enemies converge on your position, and it gets harder and harder to get up and complete the wave. Sometimes a quick solution is the easiest. I didn't really take out much value of target there, but I made sure that my teammates got up. And I had the missile to spare. It's an early round. It was my first missile. So, you have to use these things. They're, if you're losing gold matches and you are finishing with 4 or 5 missiles, then you have to ask if there's something more you could have done during the match with the missiles to make sure that you won it. Now here is a really good example of using soft cover without using right-hand advantage. So you see I've moved out of line of sight of the Geth rocket trooper by backing into the wall there, and so I can address only the hunter at first, and then I can move back into line of sight of the Geth rocket trooper to fight him. Now here, arguably I should have not gone after this guy. I saw the rocket trooper, and they're usually a high priority target for me, and I decided to take him out, but in the meantime my team is having some troubles over here. So again, in retrospect, I might make some decisions differently, and yeah, see, not being over here means that this guy goes down because he got stomped by a pyro, and now it's only down to 2 of us. Now this is going to get into more of a solo situation again, and when it gets this late in the wave, and you have a prime and only 2 people, focusing on the prime is going to be problematic. The other enemies are going to converge on you. It's going to make it harder to fire at the prime. Primes are already hard enough to deal with because of all their pets. And I think it's better if you can, in a map this big affords this opportunity, is to just focus in on the lower tier enemies. The spawn wave is going to go faster if you can kill all the lower tier guys. And that's what I'm working on right now. So I left my teammate, out to dry a little bit. He's staying alive, fortunately. But yeah, I'm trying to clean out the rest of the enemies before actually getting around to the prime. That's, if you get in a solo situation, that's how I'd recommend you do it. If you focus in on the boss unit, you're going to have a really hard time. And I'm I'm looking. I know there's one rocket trooper up here. I'm still looking for him. And always, again, you see me taking out these pets as much as I can. You know, the Geth Prime turret and drone are really, really dangerous. You always want to take them out. You see them. They're a higher priority than the Prime itself. But yeah, again, once we get the two of us, fortunately, because of the synergy between Incinerate and Overload, we have pretty good fire explosion capability. So it's getting to the later waves. These get harder. Wave 8 is arguably the hardest on most factions, and you know, there I was trying to draw. Usually the enemies come up this way, but I think they spotted one of my teammates down in the lower ground, so they started moving that way. I'm getting distracted by this bomber here a bit, and arguably I could have just run around and tried to join my teammates on the other side of the map, but it seemed prudent to take it out given that he was flanking these guys over here. And you notice for that revive, if you have the opportunity to use cover while you're reviving, then definitely take that. And another thing right there, you see me checking the flanks. This is something I mentioned in my post. Check your flanks. You can see here. Yep, that's why you check it, because once you're killing things and you're outside of a spawn, new things spawn there. And yeah, that's why you need to check them. It would be very easy to die because you weren't paying attention to what was going on behind you. Now, I ran away from those guys because I didn't think I could take on a Hunter and a Pyro without dying by myself. And I could have looped around and killed them to support my other teammate from that side of the map, but I saw this Pyro, the other Pyro, flanking these teammates over here, and made the decision that it was better just to get on their flank. Again, you can see moving around a lot. There's, you know, there's not a lot of reason to use hard cover. It's so much easier. I wouldn't say easier. It's more effective to be mobile if you're not in hard cover and to be aware of your environment. And moving around a lot is really the key to staying alive. Enemies have a harder time hitting you while you're moving. And that's part of the mechanics of this game. And here, so this is a good example of just running away. There was too much there. I was going to die if I stayed in that exact spot. Unfortunately, a couple teammates went down, and I'm going to try and get to him, but one guy self-revived, and the other guy I didn't think I could get because there was a bomber there, bombs on the ground, so I just kept running. So he got stomped by a Geth Pyro for I think the third or fourth time this match. But this is the guy who used his Metagel all at the beginning of the match. This is why you don't do that. You save it for more important times. Rely on your teammates to revive you. They won't always, but you know, at least give them a chance and wait a little bit. So here, I'm just going to hold up position in this stairwell. I don't usually like to camp like this, but our team's not in terrible position at the point, and we seem to be holding off the enemies, and there aren't any primes immediately threatening us at the moment, so I'm just going to hold here. This actual spot is pretty good on this map. It's one where you can move in and out of line of sight. You can take a right-hand advantage against enemies coming down that stairwell right there, and if you need to, you can run away underneath the bridge. So it's a pretty good spot. So there, you know, I saw an enemy, I saw a Pyro coming, and I just backed away. You don't have to stay in enemies' faces, just keep moving. Stay away from the enemies that are dangerous, and always be moving back towards regions where you can duck safely out of cover. So on wave 9, it's looking pretty good. I have 4 missiles left, and so I'm going to decide to use one here. Now my assumption was I could get 2 primes with that. Usually they spawn together, and unfortunately I only got 1 with 2 rocket troopers, which isn't really that good. And you can see there's another prime right there. I'm not sure if it just respawned or if the missile missed it. I thought where I aimed it, it should have hit him. Regardless, I'm going to continue trying to control this high ground as much as I can without abandoning my teammates too much. So now we have a prime up here, and I don't really want to deal with that. And I see this guy's down over here by himself, and I don't want him going down because he's probably been one of the most other effective players in this match. Though I didn't get there in time before he almost got stomped. At least I was able to provide a little bit of cover on the Pyro. But since there's not much on his side of the map at that point, I decided to come back to these guys, and they're getting, I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but they definitely have enemies closing in on them. So now we've got 2 primes in the vicinity, and you saw me fire Overload at that prime, which isn't really an effective damage against armor, but at the same time, I fire him to kill the pets, anything that's around him. And here, anytime you have 2 primes, wave 8 or 9, I'm going to use a missile. There's no doubt. I mean, an opportunity like that takes out 15% of the wave, and the other 2 teammates who were trying to fire at those guys were very preoccupied. I don't think they would have stopped firing at them until they died. So I think it just makes things go a lot smoother. I am down to 2 missiles, and I generally prefer to have at least 2 left for the last round, unless things get really, really bad in wave 9.
Hang tight.
Yeah, again, I've moved away from the primes on the bottom level. There's no reason to focus on them. Move back up to the team up here. Provide cover.
Next shot.
So, yeah, this gets into an interesting situation here. I was going for the revive over here to support, but then we have a bomber come in, which is going to make it pretty tough, and I decided the best bet was actually to back off on the flank and try and take out the bomber and provide support from the side while these guys sort of revive trade, and I can swing in as necessary and revive them. They managed to make it work, and we don't have many enemies left at this point. So, yeah, you can see it. I'm just moving. I don't stay in the same spot for too long. Don't focus on one enemy. Moving always helps. Being on a flanking position to your team helps. And it helps keep you alive too. I mean, if your teammates are drawing all the fire of the enemies and you move to the flank, then it's much harder. The enemies aren't going to target you. You have sort of free reign to fire them. Over here on the prime, I just moved into a line of sight where I could easily move in and out of his line of sight without the danger of getting shot. It was probably unnecessary given that we had all 4 guys firing at him, but in general I think it's a good principle. So yeah, targets wave 10 equal missiles. I mean, if you have them, use them. That's what I do here. Get close, make sure you don't miss. And the other thing is if you fire a missile at the target and there's another lower tier enemy next to it, the target might switch. So here, I fired at Prime and there was also a hunter next to him, and the target switches to a hunter. That makes the rest of this wave much easier. See, there's the hunter. Of course, I have no missiles left, but it's wave 10. Wave 10 is really what matters. You know, a lot of people seem to want to spend their missiles in the extraction wave, or only in wave 10. They're useful in every wave if you really need them. You know, sometimes even wave 3 can go sour. I mean, don't be afraid to use a missile if your team seems like it needs it. And your whole team is down and is together in swarm, a missile is almost always a good thing. A match can, unless you're capable of soloing the round, a missile can save the match. So here, I probably should have gone for the revive here, and I didn't. I decided to loop back around this way for some reason. It wouldn't have mattered, apparently, because he got stomped by a pyro again. But, you know, usually I'm a little bit more aggressive with my revives when I can afford to be. And, yeah, I'm just going to focus in on this prime. I know since it's a wave 10, there were only 8 enemies left. I feel like we only have a couple left. And I know at least one of them's a prime. And this is me trying to use right-hand advantage, but not particularly effectively. It's a little hard with the prime with his pets. They're always distracting you. And I was close to taking this guy out here, but I got staggered by it, presumably his pet. I can't see it anyplace. I'm looking around for it. But yeah, anyway. This is actually a pretty painful encounter here. And I use an Ospac just to be safe, because I don't want to go down my teammate right around here with another prime. Go get him. Definitely don't want to solo the round. And at this point, with only 2 bars, I'm pretty sure I can take him out. Just heads up. And here we actually have synergy again, because this is the guy with the incinerate. And so you get a fire explosion, and I'm going to focus in on the head. There, wave 10's over, and that's the money round. So from here, everything's sort of gravy. I'm looking again at the beginning of the round, see what my teammates are doing. I can see 2 of them were camping the LZ. That's not surprising at this point, given what we've seen so far. And I'm just going to hold this flank with my other teammate and make sure that nothing comes up from their backside. And when I can, I'm going to check in on the guys in the LZ and make sure that they're doing okay there. As long as we're up here and I'm suppressing this top spawn, then you know they should be okay from the backside at least. We've been away from this top spawn for a little bit, and depending on how many enemies have been killed, there's a good chance something has spawned up here, but I don't believe anything has, and that's fortunate. And I focused it in way too much on those enemies. I should have checked back here way before. That's arguably a mistake on my part. The other two guys seem to be doing fine, so I'll just come back here and make sure that nothing is coming in on this side. So again, about time for me to be checking in on my teammates on the other side. I'm getting, this is a little bit of tunnel vision. This is arguably what you should not be doing, is spending that much time shooting at the same enemies. Now here I'm going to try and switch to a missile instinctively because I see 2 primes in the LZ and I forget that I'm out. So I'm just praying one of the other 2 guys over there is going to use one. It's going to be much more difficult to extract without it. Well, he thankfully does use one, but he didn't fire it very well. He missed the second prime. He only got partial damage on it. We only have 11 seconds left, so I'm just going to hang out back here, fire as much as I can at these guys, and then hide in cover when the opportunity presents itself, like right here. And that's it. We get full extraction. Yeah, I hope that helps with some of the decision making that goes on in game. I know it's sort of fast paced, but you know, that's how I play the game, and I don't recommend that everybody else play that way. But in general, the principles of mobility and soft cover are going to help keep you alive. I mean, I did not go down at all in that match, which is honestly uncommon for me, but the reason is because you know, I was moving around a lot and enemies just don't hit you as much. And if you're smart about when to run away and when to move into cover, then you're going to stay safe. That's it. Thanks for watching. I hope this helps.